All right,
All
I'm gonna
right.
walk.
There's your
I'm gonna
cue.
What was that, JD?
I'm gonna walk away from my computer for a couple minutes. Not even a
Oh,
couple minutes,
yeah.
maybe like a minute. But I'll be right
I
back.
could totally monologue while you're doing that. Good morning, everybody. We are raging with JD Calderon. This is episode 57. Can you believe it? We made it that far. My internet is getting a little flaky, so it might be Nita and JD.
No.
Who knows? Who knows what will happen? But in the meantime, while you are tuning in, and we are trying to take people away from Daphne Lage's interview with BKM. Now, don't do that. You can watch the replay because JD Calderon's campaign is going to be live for a little while. It is the Oswald Chronicles Volume 1, and it is the first trade paperback of the Oswald Chronicles. We're really excited about that. So while you're tuning in, hit the subscribe button, share this out with your friends, and I am going to play the intro. Here we go.
Raging.
Good morning, good morning. Not usually up this early in the morning unless we're vlogging, but today we are raging with JD Calderon. He is the first part of Double Trouble today because we do have a second interview later on this afternoon with Russ Leach. But here, hey, JD, welcome back.
How you doing?
I'm going to put you in the seat of honor. The seat of honor.
I thought it was a pressure seat. Okay.
and Nita kind of yelled at you because you've already hit the button, man.
I thought that's what I was supposed to do.
Like, Nita, don't yell at our guests, okay?
So it's okay. It's okay. I get yelled at on a daily basis, so it's fine. Yeah, I'm kind of used to it.
Now you've been adopted by 2 more women. Oh my God, I'm so sorry.
Listen, I got a job. It's not just 2 more women. It's just
how many work wives do you have after all?
Too many.
Yeah, I have a lot of work ex-husbands. It's
ex-husbands. I love it.
Yep.
Oh, me too. The list grows daily.
I'm collecting them all like Pokemon cards.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
Tell us about the Oswald Chronicles Volume 1 and why you decided to, after all this time, to make a trade paperback.
Well, the Oswald Chronicles, based around this little guy right here. His name is Oswald.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I've run the course with producing in the there you go. That's it. That's the pin. That's gonna be
That's also a great quality pin too, by the way, folks.
It really is. Nice enamel pin.
Yeah. Thank you. So that's available on the current campaign as well as an add-on. But the Oswald Chronicles is based around the life of a mouse, and he very unusually finds out that he enjoys watching television and he likes talking to people. Or fairies mostly, but he does talk to people on occasion. And he lives on 54th Street and Park Avenue, New York City. And he also discovers that he has, a penchant for magic, right? And he straddles these 2 worlds. He straddles the world of man and he straddles the world of magic, which is the world of fae, right? So he straddles these 2 worlds. And he's trying to find his way through life. And this is the very beginning of his life. So this is in that book, the trade paperback that's being offered. It has the first issue, has this book right here. This is My First Day, and it's basically his origin story. So he's recounting what he's done in his life, And then that story flows into Passing Queens and Making Homes, and this has the first 3 issues of that. So that's this series right here.
So finally getting the chronological order we all deserve.
Yes. It is in chronological order, and it's illustrated by Jade Gonzalez, and she does a beautiful, wonderful job. Now, real quick, I want to show everybody for the first 38 physical backers. Right, I got a few things.
Should I put you up on the big screen here?
Yeah, if you want,
Yes, do it.
you can put me up. There you go. So I'm offering up. Everybody will get one of these. It's a little sticker. It's like a vinyl sticker.
Oh, nice.
Ooh.
You'll get one of those.
Ooh,
It's a round vinyl sticker. And then you'll get this guy, and that's like all shiny and reflective.
Ooh.
So, right.
Oh, holofoil going on.
Yep. I'm giving away a little pin. So.
Oh, sweet.
Okay. Yeah. And that is for how many? The first how many backers?
38 physical
backers. All right.
Yes.
I need to get my ass over there. I need that in my life.
I have to I'm working out something for the digital backers, because I do end up with a lot of digital backers. Thank you, digital backers. Love you guys. And I want to work something in, for that. But everybody would get it, because if you order a book, you're gonna get the digital package with it. So you will get that. Yeah. And then, like I said, there's this little guy available as an add-on. And also very new for me is I'm wearing one, but it's hard to see it, so I'm just going to hold it up. Right. And that's a t-shirt. Then I'm also offering.
Very cool.
And if people paid attention to your Facebook account, they would have freaking caught that little Easter egg on your Disney trip.
Right, exactly. Yes.
I saw that, caught that. I was like, oh, look at this dude here.
It's the morning show, but it's still raging, Nita.
It's still raging, yeah.
The replay doesn't care what time it is.
Exactly. So yeah, it's I mean, basically that's the pitch. We got Oswald. He's a mouse. He's insane. He loves traveling, and he goes to all this stuff. And he like I said, this is his genesis. So this is volume 1. There'll eventually be a volume 2. I want to pull up the campaign, and I'll show you guys the cover, because the cover,
like, for me, you guys are fairly new to me. And so, backing your campaigns and things like that. And I knew that I was somewhere in the middle of the story. And so I was really looking forward to this so that I could get, from the beginning in chronological order and really understand, like where Oswald came from. And it's kind of cool too. Love the premise of, like learning to read and his different interests, why he becomes different, or how he becomes different. And what's her? Is it Sally, the little girl?
Sally's a little. Name? Yeah, she's the little girl that he's first kind of just falls into her life. He trips and he lands up on her bed, and she was gonna squish him because like anybody, you find some random mouse just fall on your bed. Right, you're gonna squish it or just smack it around or whatever. But he screams and she's like, she's never heard any other mouse speak, so she's just like, what's the deal with this little guy? So they get into a relationship, and she names Oswald. She finds him his name. And that's very important. Being named, who you are. But he only has one name; doesn't have a last name, so it's just Oswald. And she also goes on and she teaches him how to read. She teaches him how to play the piano. She teaches him how to also do mathematics and and that sort of thing. And during the course of this, Oswald discovers that there are other creatures in the world other than humans and mice. He finds out there's these very horrible little creatures. You can see them on the edges. And they're these goblins. And you can see.
Yeah, let me get you on the big screen.
Okay.
Yeah.
So he discovers that there are goblins in the world. And they're doing something that affects Sally. And he's not very pleased, and he tries to fight them. He does his best. But at this point, he's just a mouse. He can't really do anything. He just bite and scratch and that sort of thing and run around. But he does the best he can. And then eventually he ends up on the streets of New York, traveling, trying to find out what's going on. And that's where we move into Passing Queens and Making Home. So we move into the next phase of his life, and that's literally him just walking around, some Jay
That
did
is
some
some
incredible
beautiful
work here.
art. Yeah,
Oh yeah.
beautiful
She did
art.
some incredible work here. New York City. He's just going around, and he's and then
Very
these are the
cool.
two characters that he eventually runs into. This is Jones and his sister, I believe her name is Sarah. And he runs into them, and they're being chased by some orcs. And then he finds out about their life and what's going on, with them, and it's just a point of madness at that point, because he finds these two children on the run. He sees they're really beat up. Their clothing, he notices, is very fine. Like they're dressed very well, but the clothing is very raggedy. They're dirty, and he's just like, what's going on? And then later on, he finds out that they're actually part of nobility, the local nobility, and he ends up befriending them. He ends up helping them. He ends up discovering that he has, like I said, a penchant for magic, and they had this thing that they stole from the Orc Queen, and it's a very powerful piece of magic. It's called a Imaginarium Stone, and Oswald grabs a hold. They hand him the stone, and they're like, here, look at it. And he manages, he's able to activate the magic within the stone, and he's able to wield that stone. It's never been pointed out to me, but it's funny because I started watching the way he uses the magic, right? And I guess on this cover, right, he learns how to use it, right? And that's him, doing a little arm thing. He's fighting some other wizard with that stone, and I was like, oh, he wields that thing just like a Green Lantern ring, and it was kind of weird. And I was just like, okay. And listen, and I don't feel too bad about that. Green Lantern stole that from Lensman, so hey, it all gets shared out, So I don't think Green Lantern is original or new or anything to those guys. They stole that from Lensman.
So when you were putting together this story, like, bring us back. I know you've been on the show a couple of times, but we do love the Genesis story, and when Oswald first popped into your head, was it like while you were commuting, you had a little time to write? Was it
Okay.
based on things that because obviously with the second book, with the New York City scenes and things like that, obviously you stomp through New York City quite often.
Yes.
So a lot of those things, have that feeling of familiarity and home. But when it comes to like Oswald's story, was it based on things that you might have seen, or maybe dialogue that you've heard?
Okay. So I've told the story before, but I'm more than happy to tell it again. All right. So Daphne and I were traveling. We were walking from east side to west side, okay, in New York City. So we were crossing Park Avenue. And on Park Avenue, there are these things that are called malls. And they're just a big meridian. They have, they're made out of, they're just like big garden patches, okay? So they plant gardens on them, and they have little trees, and they have, sometimes they'll put art fixtures on them. It's very nice. Park Avenue, this particular area around 53rd Street, probably running from 50th, no, further down, probably like 48th, 49th Street, all the way up to probably like into the 80s or 90s. It's all lined by banks, okay? So it's all these huge financial institutes line this street, right? So this is perhaps the most well-manicured street or avenue in New York City. They power wash the sidewalks. It's a really, really nice street. It's very clean. So these malls are also manicured by these same establishments. And so they're just wonderful. You know, they put little gardens in them and they're flowers. So Daphne and I were walking. They had these little flowers, and I saw them, they were all chewed up, and I was like, what happened there? They were like, they all look all beat up. And I turned to her and I said, you know, there's some fairy out there who's really mad that some troll ate her flowers. And she looked at me and she disputes this. She disputes this. But I was there. I was there. I was wounded. I was there. I was marked in my brain. She said, that's stupid. You know, and I was like, really? I was like, that'll make a good story. She was like, no. And I was like, yes, I'll prove it to you. So,
Oh my God.
yeah. So I took her home, and then at the time we weren't living together. We were very young. We were living with one another, but I took her home. I was coming home. I had a book, I had my pad, and I had my pen, and I started writing that night on the train as I was going home. And that was the very first Oswald story I ever wrote. It was called The Park Avenue Mall War. And it was about Diane, and that's one of his guardians. That's one of Oswald's guardians. She's actually revealed in this set of stories that's coming up, and Ordith, who is also one of his guardians. So and they represent night and day, or you know, positive, negative, yin yang, that sort of thing. So the one is always out during the daytime, the other one's always out at night, and they're there to watch over him, help him, guide him, and in some. In an emergency instance, if he were to lose it, they're there to contain him. So, yeah, this story was about those two characters, and then Oswald was there. And Oswald originally was just supposed to be a crypt keeper type character. He was just supposed to tell tales. He was just supposed to be some odd mouse who lived on the mall and who just told all of these crazy stories. You know, from his perspective, he would just sit down and write in a little journal, and he would just write. And it's funny because that's all he was supposed to be. He wasn't supposed to be the center of attention of these stories. He was supposed to tell the tales and just be there, right? But he wasn't supposed to be the center. But like any character, you know, that he just screamed and screamed and screamed, and he started moving more to the center, and it's just like, okay, this is starting to become about him. And that's why I have a very disjointed history. So if you've ever bought all the comic books, you'll know that, you know, I'm jumping around in his history, right? So with the trade paperbacks and with what I'm currently doing, I'm starting from the beginning and I'm working my way out. So this is a very good jumping on point because this is the very beginning of the story, right? And at this point, that's how I'm trying to move it. I'm trying to move it from this point onto the center, and I'm filling in all the gaps in between the stories. And if you ever need a chronological order, you can DM me or write me an email or something, because I always send it out all the time. I have posted it on my website, theoswaldchronicles.com. The only thing is that it has gone through a number of updates, and it's gone down the scroll. So I don't even know if it's still up, because I know I've posted it, but the system crashed a couple of years ago. We had to pull it down and put it back up. So I don't know. So I have to probably repost it. So to show everybody the chronological order of all the stories, and there's quite a few of them, because he has 3 lives, and this is his first one. There's a second one that he lives in Dream, and then there's a third one which I am almost done with. So that's really crazy.
And that's why I'm so thankful for volume 1. You know, so I can kind of get that chronological order and figure out where he's coming from, because the idea of 3 lives, where did that come from?
You know, that I would God, organic is really the just like the wrong word. Is like, how do you you know, how does that even happen? But I do know as a writer how it grew, right? So I was working on his first life, and that's basically him on the mall. He's in New York City. He's living. He learned how to do magic. There's another race of entities that live in New York City. They look like hamsters, and they're called Calcians, and they ride around on squirrels and pigeons. And when they encountered him, they ended up leaving him some books on magic, because they knew he had, you know, like they knew he could cast, and they knew something about him and what he is, because he is something special. God, I hate the term what is that, the chosen one, right? So but he does have a purpose. You know, they do understand that, and they left him these books of magic so he could learn and, you know, go through everything. So he started learning, and Oswald learns at a very fast pace. Okay, like I explained it to someone else. It was like, look, he's a mouse, right? And like mouse, they go from that little pinky thing, right, to being a full grown mouse in what, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, right? And then they're eating, your cookies, and that's how long it takes them to go from that little thing to being a mature mouse. So it takes them 2 months to go to basically what we would consider an 18-year-old, right? So that he learns at that pace. So what takes a human 18 years to learn, he learns in 2 months. Okay, so he's learning at a very, very fast pace. So when he studies and learns magic the same way. So when he's studying, he reads very fast, and he's able to absorb all of this knowledge very quickly. So he's growing, and he grows. His magic grows very quickly. What he refers to as his art. His art, he grows very, very quickly. He becomes very, very powerful in a very short amount of time because he's able to absorb a lot of information. Now, the other thing is that the Calcians warn him there's a price to pay for using magic, okay? But he never encounters that price, okay? For a long time, he never encounters that price. And it was a bit of a conundrum for me because I was just like, okay, because I knew where he was drawing the magic from, but it was just like how to explain it, how to bring it out, how does it affect him, right?
Right. So since he wasn't called to carpet, like, okay, you've got the magic now and you have to pay the price, but it hasn't happened for a while, so maybe it's something that he even forgot about.
It's nothing. No, he didn't forget about it. He just didn't know how or why or what was the reason. But he does discover it eventually, and that happens later on. And what happened as a writer, I'm writing these stories, right? And I'm like, I'm limited. as insane as it sounds, I says I'm limited to New York City, and I'm limited to fairies and trolls and orcs and everything that goes within that realm, and New York City and all the people, right? And I'm like, this just isn't crazy enough. I can't do everything I want to do, right? So I'm like, what should I do? I was like, oh, I'll put him in dream. That's what I'll do. So I, came up with this sequence where I came up with a story where he ends up in dream, and he's in there, and in dream, that was it. It was just, the gloves came off, and it was just every bit of insanity that I could put in, I put in. He ends up, there's a story called My Time with Clive, where it's I have 9 issues of that I wrote, and where he runs around with this angel baby, and he's trying to find his parents, and they go through all these wacky adventures, and it's just nuts. It's just a lot of fun. He has a lot of different adventures there. What happened?
Twisted. My Time with Clive traumatized me, man.
Come on, it's funny. It was fun. Yeah. Well, I mean, it was the Cthulhu meets the Hobbits. Yeah. That's definitely one. Yeah, that's a funny one. But he goes through all these crazy adventures. Through that, he ends up marrying. He ends up finding out that that there's a race in Dream called the Mar, right? And he ends up becoming their emperor, and he's given this title from their past king, and the king gives him the title and the responsibility of becoming the emperor. And what has happened with this race is that he encounters them, and they're all mice, and he's just like, wow, And one of the things with him before up until this point is there's a melancholy kind of sadness to it because he knows he's alone, right? He's unique because he can't talk to the mice; they don't talk, right? So he goes to this, and when he's in Dream, he discovers this race of mice, and he's just like, wow, this is crazy. I always thought I was alone, right? So he ends up marrying one of them, the love of his life, Belinda, and then they end up within Dream. He lives an 80-year lifespan. So a lot goes on in that 80 years. He becomes a vastly powerful sorcerer. Most of that time in Dream is spent at his race, the Mar that he's with, is spent at war. Okay. So maybe there's like 6 years out of 80 years that he's not fighting at some point. and he himself becomes a very powerful battle mage, very feared. Now, the reason there's so much war is, and Oswald doesn't know this, right? And there are forces working to keep them separate, is that his friends, because he's asleep on the mall, and he's asleep for 2 weeks. In this 2 week period, he's in Dream for 80 years. His friends are trying to pull him out of Dream. And what they're doing is they're literally raising armies, right, to attack the Mara to get him away from them, right? And he and this is eventually becomes a huge problem for him emotionally, because he has a wife, he has children. During these wars, he's lost some of his kids. You know, his wife ends up, literally her transporter gets blown up with her in it, and one of his other daughters. So, the stuff that goes on that's a little crazy, and then eventually, at the end, eventually Jay Gonzalez is actually working on that story right now, so it's gonna be really interesting. That's
really
coming out in the
dark,
future.
JD. That's really
Listen,
dark.
it's about
It's
so,
twisted, and it's worse than that.
But see, and that's the thing. It's like the important question also would be, okay, who's your target audience? What age group? Because that's not for
Right.
children.
Well,
It's not for children.
It's not for little kids. It's not for
Not for
little kids.
littles.
That's definitely right. Not for little kids. But I have found that the demographic that really shocked me, and I discovered this in San Diego Comic-Con. We would go every year, and at that time it was only pros. It wasn't a comic book. It was just pros. And I had a group. They ranged anywhere from about 10 to about early 20s, right? But I also had a lot of adults come in too that also enjoyed it. And every year they would swoop in and they'd be like, "Do you have something new? Do you have something new?" And it was a good 20 or 30 of them that would always run by, and it was like, "What do you got this new?" And they would always pick it up, and then I would sign it and they run off, and then that would be cool. So yeah, I would figure anywhere. Here's the thing. If my thing has always been is if they could watch Lord of the Rings, they can, I think, handle whatever happens on. And then when I say Lord of the Rings, I mean the movies. If they can watch the movies, Lord of the Rings, I'm pretty sure they can handle anything that's going on in the Oswald. But yeah, it does get a little dark. It does get but it's it's the sort of thing I enjoy. Like I said, here's the thing. I write the story for myself and I share it. Right, that's the way I view it. I write it and I share it. It's a passion project. It's something I create for myself. They say that there are a number of ways to write. Right, you can either write to an audience, and I feel if you want to be a commercial writer, which I've done, that's what you do. You're gonna write to that audience. Right, I wrote Tenchi Muyo. I wrote that. I watched the anime. They sent me a 24. A season which had 24 episodes. I binge watched those suckers in 2 days, and my goal was to keep to the heart of that story, right? So I wanted to keep to that heart of that story, and I think I did that. A lot of the fans of that have said I did, but that's where you want to stay. You want to stay as a commercial writer, right? So I did some other things, and then also it was like I tried to keep to the heart of those stories. But as someone who's just doing their own thing, I always espouse the fact that do what you want to do. Sales are fantastic. I love sales. I love to sell stuff. I love to share the work with everyone, as many people as possible. But when I hear things like write to your audience, I start to think hack, because, and it's probably unfair of me to say that because people are trying to make a living. I get it. But I'm like, if write to your soul and share it with people, because that for me is the truest thing you can do. And that's not to say that you writing to your audience, you're not going to do that. Some people I'm sure are fully capable of doing that. That's not to say I'm not capable of doing it, but I'm like not really that interested in doing that. Once in a while I'll target a person and I'll write to them, and I'll write to that person. I've done that before in the past. But that's more of someone who I've had like that relationship with.
I think that speaks to the longevity of your stories too, because when you write about like things that are happening now, or you're catering to a certain trend, once that phase ends, people lose interest, you know, or maybe they look back on it with nostalgia, maybe a decade later, you know, because that seems to be kind of like the cycle, isn't it? But when you write for the art of storytelling, because that is something in you that you want to get out, it does have that longevity. And the fact that you've got a 20-30 year career doing this speaks volumes to that, you know, that you guys have been around.
We've been around,
people,
yes.
You've been around, and people are still seeking out your stories and things. You know, so that's really that speaks to the why of writing. You know, a lot of people is like, well, why are you writing? You know, they see other people, and it's that like FOMO, fear of missing out. You know, they see other people doing so well. They have the 5 and 6 figure, you know, or they have the book deal that turns into a movie deal and all that stuff. And they're like, oh, I want that, you know, and they're chasing after somebody else's dream instead of focusing on their own.
Yeah.
You know,
and what they don't realize is that that's a very, very small minority. That those people who make it, the J.K. Rowlings of the universe, there's just one of her. You know, there's her, there's Stephen King, there's a few other names that you could throw in there. But I mean, but even, you know, I could throw out names like Isaac Asimov, Frank Herbert, Roger Zelazny, you know, a lot of these people, right, whose work is just as good as hers and possibly better. You understand, as far as the quality of writing, but they didn't achieve the sales that she achieved. You know, and maybe Frank Herbert did. Dune being like, I think the most sold science fiction story ever. But still though, they didn't achieve that financial success that she did. You know, that's not to say they didn't achieve his financial success. They probably got very wealthy, these guys, especially Asimov, Herbert. But you know, my understanding is she became a billionaire, and the only reason she's not a billionaire now is because she gave away so much money to charity that she's no longer a billionaire, and good on her for it. You know, wish we had more of those in the world. But yeah, but when you chase after that, when you like, yeah, I'm gonna get that Netflix deal, and I'm gonna get that deal, and that make it into a movie. That's such a small. That's a handful of all of the people creating stuff, and I think, look, if it happens, it happens. You know, be grateful for it, and go after it, of course. You know, you could do the trade shows, and you can seek those things out. But my thing is, you know, would I like to see Oswald as a cartoon? Of course, right? Do I want to see toys? Of course. But am I chasing that? Not really, you know, because you can, like I said, you can go to trade shows. But the issue there is sometimes you end up selling your soul while you're there. You know, you're going to give up your baby. You know, Eastman and Laird from the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, right? Huge success, made a lot of money, both those guys, right? If you look at what's on the television and you look at their original work, it's not the same, right? It's not the same vision. It's not the same thing. I get it, because the original vision was really dark. You know, a lot of deaths, a lot of murders, right? They're killing ninjas all over the place. So I get it that it changed into what it changed into. But at the same time, as a creator, is that what you want to, you know, that's not what you really set out to do. And then, you know, how do you change and morph that? Good on, I believe, is Laird, who always in his contracts keeps a small portion. He always has a portion of that contract that says he can work on his version of the stories of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles for however long he wants. So he can always do his own thing. It's, I think, limited to like 13 issues a year, or like 13, you know, individual comics a year, which I don't think he's ever. I like right now. I know they're doing Last Ronin, which everybody says is fantastic, and you know that's what he's working on. And like I said, good on him that he puts that in his contracts. You know, that he's like, okay, you can have it and you can do your own thing, but I can do my thing as well. You know, and that's probably, if anything like that would ever happen to me, I probably want to go that way as well. Because I know Mike Mignola with Hellboy had something similar. Guillermo del Toro did his movies, and they were similar to the comics, but they were not the same, and they certainly weren't running in the same direction as far as story. So,
have you, at any point in time just thought, yeah, that's the way I want to go. I want to go with the movie route. Like this is going to be my gateway into that. Or has it always been just really about the prose and the comics? I mean, what motivates you?
Right. There was a short period of time where I was very interested in making film. Right. So I went to film school, and that absolutely burned it out of me. So if you ever want
The realities of filmmaking.
right. I went to film school. I had fun. I did 3 films. I did a 1-minute short. I did a documentary, a short documentary, 5 minutes, and then I did a 10-minute short as my graduation thing. And I had a lot of fun.
It was
But-
awesome.
We saw it.
We saw it. It was fucking brilliant.
So, I mean, it's a lot of fun, and it's certainly something I probably think I could have done, but it's a lot of work. I mean, yeah, it's a lot of work. And the
more
thing is,
more so than writing.
it's different.
And I'm not talking about the physicality of it, you know, because obviously, you know, going to sets and things like that. But you know, I mean,
Is it more
the mental workout?
Right. Well, see, here's the thing, though. I wrote the script, right, and then you got to go figure out how to shoot the script, right? See, here's the funny thing about it. In a comic book, I write the script, then I hand that sucker over to my artist, and they figure out those mechanics, right? So with film, I had to go figure out those mechanics, right? So I'm like, oh man, so you got to sit there and figure it out. And I guess this is why so many directors use storyboard artists, so they can go in and they can, you know, figure out those mechanics. You can figure out the shots, the shot angles, and all those things.
But let me ask you that then, because with the film school experience, you know, when you're thinking about certain angles and things, do you put those in your script too for your artist, or you're like, no, here you go, have fun?
No, I tend not to. I let them try. You know,
so you're not doing the whole, you know, like okay, no. I want it like.
No, because my thing is this: is that it is a collaborative effort. So I have to give them a little bit of room, right? So you have to be like, okay, well, you do your end, I'll do my end, you know? So I try not to break it down like panel 1, scene 1, you know, it's a dark and stormy night and 3/4 worm's eye, you know, guy pops out, his eyes are bloodshot. You know, I try not to go into like all those crazy details. You know, I know Alan Moore does, and God bless him, but if you ever see some of his scripts, you know, one comic page is like 3 pages of written text. So yeah, that's the thing. Is just you know, I try not to do that. So
yeah, Mike Jimmy had said the only limit in comics is your own skill as an artist. We're writers, Mike Jimmy. But that's the charm of it. Film is a lot more limited. That's interesting. And Steph Wilson says, never overdirect. Good thinking. 2 artists in the house tuning in.
There you go.
Yes. And so that's kind of neat that you give them that ability to kind of world build based on your words. What happens? I mean, has it ever surprised you, one, in a good way, and then what the heck do you do when it surprises you in a bad way?
Well, they're obviously different situations. I've said this, and I've always said this. I write my stories, right? And I rarely, if ever, get back what I asked for or what I think I'm asking for, right? But I always get back something typically fantastic, different, and it's great. You know, so that's the thing. You have to be able to sometimes let go, right? Like Jade Gonzalez, right? So this story right here, the Passing Queens and Making Homes. This is a classic example of it, right? So we have Orc, and we have Jones and his sister, and they're kobolds, right? That's what they're supposed to be, right? Kobolds. So my idea was, I just told her, I said, you know, I said the orcs are pig-like, right? They're not necessarily, you know, pigs, but they're pig-like. And then the kobolds are supposed to be kind of like dog-like, right? So, but what did I end up with? I ended up with dogs and pigs. So she took it very literally, and I was just like, she did it, and I was just like, okay, that's it.
You're
That's
so
what it is.
easygoing. You're so easygoing. I mean, we've talked to other writers who are like, no, they do have that every detail, like the bloodshot eyes, the angle. I want to pan down on this and things like that. And it just
They
feels
will Tolkien you to death.
it feels like totally micromanaging it, and maybe not giving them the flexibility to put in their art style, which is probably the reason why you hired them in the first place.
Right. Exactly.
And it just feels like you're shackling them in some place. So finding that balance is kind of hard with the communication and how much is too much, and then when is it like too little, and then it feels like a runaway train.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, for myself, with Oswald specifically, I letter those pages, right? So I go and I do all the lettering, and then, I've said it before, I say it again. He says, the art in writing is in that edit. When you go in there and you trim and you cut and you make those changes, and you're constantly buffing, you're constantly polishing. I think that's where I'll get those pages back. And here's the thing that I always tell her. I said, look, I don't, the characters and stuff. This is, if you change them or whatever, that's fine. But make sure that the words that I have spoken on the page are important, right? So the things that are important to me is the words and the situation, obviously the plot, and the ability to the emotional content of the scene. So I will put in for myself is like, a person is speaking, but they're smiling. They're speaking, but they're grimacing. They're speaking, but they're sad, but, so on and so forth. They're crying, laughing, so on and so forth. They're happy, So that's important to me. They just can't have, because I grew up in the era of, the 80s and the 90s, but specifically the 90s, where everybody was talking. They were like, everybody's like, with a mean, with you see teeth and a mean face, and you just see a word balloon, and it would be just anything, some dumb garbage would come out of their mouths. But so it's important to me for that emotional content that you can tell what these people are feeling, whether through the eyes, through the expressions on their faces, so on and so forth. So that's very important to me. So, and sometimes you don't always get the right expressions. So sometimes you gotta go on the fly. You gotta fix that, and I'm not gonna, it all depends. Literally, I think I can count on both hands the amount of times I've had to tell Jay to go back and change something, and typically it's not even change. It's usually add something. Like she might have forgotten a little detail, I was like, okay, look, this has to go in. It's important, and it'll just be that little thing. And to be honest, it's, and mind you, we've done 1,200 pages together at least, So very few times I had to go back and say, all right, change that. It just doesn't happen that much. And I know there are writers that go out there and they're just like, breaking the chops of their artists, just like, this has to be this way and this has to be that way. And it's just like, it depends, it really does.
You said 1,200 pages. That's
At
a lot
least.
of pages. That's a
Oh,
lot
yeah,
of pages.
it's a lot of pages.
And at this point, it's probably like shorthand. The communication shorthand. It's like, here you go, and she can kind of, now that she's got a feel for it too, it's almost like family reunion in a way.
Yeah, pretty much. So yeah, I mean, we've been doing it together for a long time. Yeah, we've gelled that way. So
one of the biggest struggles that a lot of people have, whether you're a newcomer or a veteran, is finding those teams of people that you can kind of rely on from project to project. And I've talked to plenty of filmmakers who, there's a certain amount of nepotism, if you will, not so much with family, right, but because you find the people that you work with, and you're like, I need you available, or they'll even like hold off making a film until their crew is ready, because because of that group dynamic that you found is so rare. What is that process like for you as far as finding team members and people that you want to keep on from project to project? I'm sure it's been tough.
Yeah, well, with Jade, I got lucky. Okay,
Mhm.
so when I was first started on the process of doing Oswald as a comic, I wasn't looking for a comic artist. I was looking for someone to just do spot illustrations for my pro stories. And she had written me back, and I had reached out to her, and she had written me back. She said, "Look, I can do a comic page for this and this and this." And at the time, you know, I had a windfall of cash, so I was like, "Okay, let's do this." I wrote a script, and it didn't work. I was like, "This isn't gonna work," because it wasn't a very visual script. You know, it was. I wrote a story, and it just I was very into prose at the time, so it was very thoughty, right? So there's a lot of thought in there, but there's not enough visuals. So I ended up writing another story for her, and I was like, okay, this one's way more visual. So that worked. And then I just started working on some of my other stories with her. But like I said, I just got lucky, you know, because I started working with her. We did, and that story was the first one I worked with her was Fallen Gods, and that's 140 pages, you know. So it was a good amount of time for us to get a feel for one another and you know where we're going, you know, visually, right? And the one thing I discovered with her is that she's an excellent storyteller. Her artwork is smooth and clean, and yeah, so you know it just worked out, and then we just continued working with one another. And obviously, as you go, you know, we've grown, I guess, as a team. But now I'm working with another young man. His name is Aurelio Tillis, and also a fantastic artist. But took me what 3 years to vet him, maybe. You know, so I had him do some illustrations for shorts, and then I was like, okay, boom, we did this, and then you know, just did a couple of those. Had him do, I think, and then I said, okay, can you do a short story for me? The short story is literally 3 pages long, right? And that came, you know, we did that, and it was okay. That worked out. He did a cover, it looked fantastic. I was like, okay. And I said, would you want to work on something longer? And that's where we're at now. I think we're 40 pages in, 64-page story. I should be getting another batch of pages from him soon. And that's just, you know, that's just where we're at. We're just, you know, chugging along, you know. And but that's the type of process I go through. It takes a while. I'm working with another young man right now, and I'm gonna see if maybe he works out. Maybe he will, maybe he won't. But he's illustrating a short for me, so we'll see how that works out. And then yeah, and that's typically the process I go through. You know, it's just a matter of just working with people. You find a good artist, you know, you just for me it's like you can either make it work or not work. You know, I've rarely have problems. I guess maybe it's because of my easygoing nature. You know, I worked with one artist, and he literally put stuff in the story. You know, he added a character. You know, he added scenes, and I was like, oh God, now I got to add in all this stuff. So I had to go in and work around, you know, this character that he put in. You know, it's a beautiful character. It's just this
Okay, I was going to
demon.
say if it was a terrible character, you could have very easily gone, nope, get rid of it.
Yeah, no. It was a beautiful character. Um, of his own design. It's called Blue Sin, and it was this demon type character. And I ended up having to make up, you know, this section of the story that I wasn't planning on doing, but I ended up doing. You know, I think the story would have been more streamlined without without that character and the subplots that went along with it to get it in there. But yeah, you got to roll with the punches. You know, you have to be able to adapt, and that's always been my thing. It's just okay, let's just adapt. And that happened when I was like 18, 19 years old. So it's always been that give and take. You know, when I work with Daphne, my wife, you know, Ego Raven, Air of the Last Unicorn. A couple of days left. Go get that one. Good book, great book, right? Um, uh, when I work with her with Tall Tales, you know, I hand her a script and I walk away. You know, just like that's you. She letters it. She does the whole thing. I get to see it at the end, and then you know she always gets salty at me because I'm sitting there with a red. I'm like, give me the printout, and I'm sitting there with a red pen, you know, correcting the lettering, and she's always mad because she has to go back and fix it. I'm like, well, you lettered it. I do it to myself all the time. I letter my pages, I print them out, and I'm sitting there with a red pen doing my corrections, and I go in and I correct my pages. You just got to do it.
Speaking of Daphne, we have something we're going to throw up real quick, and we'll be right back.
All right. Nice.
Yay.
Daphne is getting down to the wire. 52 hours left to go. 122 freaking backers. She's killing it, you guys. Make sure you take care of her and show her some love.
Yes. Very nice.
And JD, we're going to bring up your campaign here. I see that you've got that on the share screen.
Yeah.
All right. Good start. Let me see where you are.
Not bad for an hour.
You are at 10 backers at 778. Well done. More than just about halfway there. Yeah, you are halfway there.
Yeah.
So yeah, take us a bit through your campaign here, what we can expect, and for anybody who is tuning in, make sure that you get over there. We've got the links to JD's Kickstarter as well as his social media. Follow him everywhere. Just don't peek in his windows because that's weird.
Yes, and you might get poked in the eye if you do.
Right.
But yeah, it's like I was saying earlier. We have I put together this little card, which I think was one of the better things I've done with these campaigns. So, here's the main cover. This is done by Renyo Tillis. This is going to be the cover of the trade paperback. So wrap around. So it'll be really nice. And also, I didn't talk about it. I haven't mentioned it much, but there's also a chapbook that's available, right? You can buy either the chapbook by itself, or you can buy it combined with the trade. And this is the Return to Dream. This is the fourth portion of the Star Tremor series. So there was 3 other chapbooks. If you're new, I have an add-on where you can buy the other 3 chapbooks as well. So you can get the whole, from the beginning to this point. And this is a portion. These stories are Oswald reminiscing about his time in Dream. Okay, so he's telling a lot of those stories that were never told. So a lot of that stuff is coming out. So this is the latest one, A Return to Dream, where he goes back to Dream and he discovers that some of his family is still alive. He thought they all died in Dream, because he was always led to believe that Dream was just that. It was just a dream. It wasn't its own world. It wasn't its own reality, right? And he discovers that, no, it is its own reality. And some of his family, some of his children are still alive. He finds his eldest daughter still alive. And he has grandkids, and and even the next generation is starting to come up, and he discovers that they're in some trouble, and he goes helps them out. So that's covered in that story, Return Dream. Here's a little picture of the early bird package for the first 38 backers. So you got the pin and the 3 stickers, the T-shirt, and also the hard enamel pin. And then once we hit goal, that will unlock the first stretch goal, which is this trading card. And then we have, a number of other trading cards, which I've done, in a prior campaign, which I think is kind of cool. I collect trading cards. I like trading cards. So if you have a book, if you're doing a campaign and you want to get me in there, offer trading cards. You might be able to get me in there. And then here's like I said, the cover is by Regnio Tillis. I think he did a fantastic job. I love this cover. I love these faces. And and then he goes in, and then these are various sections of the stories that are going on. And then this is the first page to My First Day, and it's just Oswald sitting at his desk, and he's just recounting the story of his life. And he's just sitting there, and he's just going through, seeing his little self, watching at the feet of people, laughing, trying not to get discovered. So it's fun, and this is where he meets Sally. Well, you met her before, but this is where she's trying to help him find out figure out what's a good name for him, and she goes through various, Martin, Jeffrey, and all these other things, and then they settle on Oswald. She's teaching him how to read, right? Play the piano, and it's just I'm going through life.
I love the idea of the gremlins and trolls and things like that. It's like nobody knows why she's sick, and
Right.
And so here she is, and he discovers it.
Mm-hmm.
Did that come from maybe a personal experience? Like that idea is like that mystery illness. It's like why, and just trying to wrap your brain around it.
No.
Meredith needs everything to be so deep
I want
and have so
deep
much intelligence
stories.
and depth
And JD
behind
said,
it.
like, nah.
No,
It's just
I'm
trolls.
just creative, motherfucker. That's what you need to tell her.
it's one of the.
You could have lied to me, JD, man. Oh, come on.
It's one of these things where it's I don't know it's difficult to say where the stories come from, right? I've always said that I try to consume a lot of material, whether it's prose or comics or just watching TV or film. So you try to ingest as much as you can, right? And then it's just grist for the mill. It gets ground up and it just gets all put in there, and then it gets put out, and then the way it comes out is the way it comes out, and the only thing you hope for is that it makes sense at the end, right? But that's where I say the art is in the edit. That's where you make it make sense, is in that edit.
Now, Meredith's over here trying to turn you into Nostradamus. Like, in the future, people can be like, oh, yeah, that dude JD Calderon predicted coronavirus.
If you look in the history of storytelling, right? There are things that happen and people don't understand. So they try and, maybe project something that they do understand for that unknown in order to explain it, or so that they don't go insane thinking about the whys,
Right. No, I gotcha. I just think that, looking at it like it's, maybe that's, I don't want to say pretentious, because you have a lot of people that are like, oh yeah, my work has a lot of deep meaning and all that stuff. And it's just like, the thing is I do believe the story should have some gravitas, and it should have some meaning to it, right? But it should be layered in there very carefully and very subtly, because I find that there's some young writers, they come out and they're like, oh, my stories have to have meaning and this, that, and the other thing. And it's just like, does it? Can't you just, the sad thing about it is a lot of people try to, like, with their lives, they say, oh, my life has meaning. Not really. The universe is pretty indifferent to all of us. You can have your life make meaning by you making it have meaning, but your life just doesn't have meaning just because you exist. So I don't know, that's I've struggled with that myself. Does it have meaning? What's the meaning? I always try to layer things in, but I try to make it as subtle as possible, because I don't like beating people over the head with anything. I don't think that answered your question at all.
And
okay.
Sometimes, Meredith, it's like this. Sometimes it can just be as simple as imagination.
Well,
It's a mouse story. I gotcha.
Right.
I don't know.
Your brain's too big to wrap around this, Mayor.
No, it's one of those things where it's just like, where do the stories come from? I don't know. I just write them. In the end, I just try to, like I said, Liz, I try to make sure that when I construct them, Yeah, there is, an emotional content to the stories. Um, but I mean, look, you can see it here in his little face. you know, him walking through New York City looking really sad. Um, and this is what I enjoy. You know, so yeah, I know. Like I said, I don't think I answered your question not one bit, but yeah. As far as the meaning of the stories, I mean, well, there's always been the one, I guess, through line through the entire thing has always been that it doesn't matter how small you are, right? It doesn't matter how insignificant you are, you can make a difference, and that's always been the through line for Oswald.
Well, because
So
a lot of times in my own storytelling, it might be something that I observed, something whatever I ingested,
right.
um,
Hmm.
and then sometimes it's just like, you know, one of the fun things that I say is that don't piss off a fiction writer because they'll kill you in their works, and so I do that
Hmm.
often. There is a lot of bloodletting, but so like those influences from those experiences, the people that kind of come into your life, leave your life, and things like that, how that might affect the storytelling and everything, the influences, how it might, you might base a character off of something or a situation because you went through something, so it's like for me there's always like that, there always seems to be that thread that
Hmm.
binds like our personal experiences to the words that we put on the paper, even if it's just a tiny bit.
Hmm.
So yeah, so I often do look for the deeper meaning of other people's stories. Like, do you do that too?
Right, right. No, I got you. I got you. Because it's funny because try to here's the thing. Um, go write a monthly comic, right? And you'll see how that changes because you're going to be cranking. Okay. Now, imagine writing three of them at one time. You know, you, you want to sit back and you want to put all that stuff in. Sometimes you don't have time to consider the stuff. You just got to crank it. You just, and that's the thing. And then when you see it done at a high level, right? You see somebody like a Kurt Busiek or Mark Miller or even like a Neil Gaiman or Warren Ellis, and you see these guys, they're doing 2 or 3 books a month, right? And they're doing it at a very high level, right? Yeah, I think it was Jonathan Hickman, right?
I don't think I would
He,
ever want to go at that pace.
right. Well, no, I got you. I mean, Jonathan Hickman had an interesting story where he said he was writing for like 14 different artists at one time
Holy
at the same
shit.
time.
How do you even keep that separated in your head?
Right. And I mean, he was writing like I think 4 or 5 books in a month because he was doing this big project for Marvel, right? And he
Right.
said, he was like, look, he would write it, it would be first drafted and then handed off. And it was the first draft. And he was like, even he was like, man, this stuff in there, I wish I could have like, just polished up a bit, you know. And this is a guy who's a really good, very excellent writer, and the stuff that he wrote for Marvel at that time is just great stuff. And he, yeah, that'll change your perspective quick as to sitting there and doing all of those considerations because you just don't have the time for it. You're just cranking. You got to make those decisions on the fly. And I've never had to write quite at that at that pace. But when I was working commercially, I mean, I would when I did Tenchi Muyo, the 6 issues I think I wrote in a month and a half. I
Hmm.
just really banged it out. But I was also working on a couple other things. Plus, I was working on my own stuff. So yeah, you just got to sit there. You just got to like really, really produce. And when you do it like that, it teaches you to really, really like just write. And you just let it flow. And that's just the point you got to get to, just flow, flow, flow. And then all those other considerations obviously come in. And then, yeah, and then, right. So it's like I think they like there's certain authors, right, that you see they write 12 books a year, right? You'll see some guys or gals, and they'll write 12 books a year, 8 books a year, 9 books a year, and then you have another author who'll be like, "Oh yeah, I just finished my book. It took me 4 years," right? And that one book will be polished, to the nth degree. But then at that point, with that polish, there comes a certain level of you're expecting something a little bit more, right? Whereas the people who are really cranking it, you're expecting a certain level of energy, right? Like there's that energy, that high action, high movement, whereas maybe the other ones will move a little bit slower, but it's written, excellently. So I don't know. It's all different for everybody. I work my way,
Yeah.
and it's just so different.
I mean, for me to try and crank out that many stories, at some point, exhaustion
Right. Hmm.
has to be considered. And then, I mean, it's like, okay, well, then I mean, again, for me, trying to go at that pace is like, okay, what kind of shortcuts can I take? And it's like, oh, this is a splash page, just a lot of sound effects and shit,
Right.
and then I would worry that eventually all those stories are going to feel like the same thing.
Yeah, because it all gets muddled together in your head,
It
and
all
you're
gets
trying to,
muddled
yeah.
together in your head, and then trying to have all of the voices have that unique flair about them that makes them a unique character. It's just that boggles my mind. Like, I wouldn't know what I don't know, so I haven't been in that
Right.
situation on purpose, because I have enough voices in my head that I say, shut up, it's not your turn. But if I had to, on a deadline, crank them out, because
Yeah.
that's what pays the bills. I don't know that I
Right.
could. I think I would be a complete miserable bastard.
Well, you never know until you do it, and that's the thing, is you may surprise yourself, because when I came into the commercial work, it was like one of these things that just came up. A friend of mine, Matthew Lunsford, he was looking for commercial work, and he found it, and then he told me, he said, "Listen, man, they're looking for a writer." And I was like, "Really?" I was like, "All right, throw my name in a hat." So I went in there, and I did the work, and it was, at the time, it was adult work. So, and then when I say adult work, it was like XXX sort of stuff. It was that sort of work, and I was just like, it's a comic book. I was like, I had a choice. I either go, find a regular day job, or I could write comics for a while. So I decided to write comics for a while.
Yeah, so writing porn it is.
Writing porn it was. Yes, it was. And it was fun. And the thing is that those stories had stories. It wasn't just about the sex. There was sex, yes. Was there a lot of it? Yes. But there was a lot of action. There was a lot of adventure. It was about ninjas, and
it wasn't an ooh and ah book.
No. I couldn't do it I don't think I could do that even if I wanted to. I have to have something in there going on that's at least interesting on some level. I have to go back and read them. I haven't read them in years, so yeah. But
I've been on the lookout for them. So yes, I have.
Good luck.
eBay.
Oh, I know. I've been scoping them out. I got to make the monies first.
Yeah.
So we are past our hour. Great start. You are about 50% to goal. We are going to be sharing this out, and we appreciate everybody who's been tuning in. Again, JD Calderon, we've got his links to his website as well as his social media. We've got the link to the Kickstarter here, so make sure that you share that out. If you backed it, thank you. If you haven't, consider it, and then hit the button, share it out with your friends so that other people can find the story of Oswald. And my first day, and passing Queens, and
making homes.
What's the rest of it? And making homes.
It's passing Queens. Passing Queens and making homes.
Passing Queens and making homes. And
I'm a big fan of weird titles.
I don't know how you keep them all straight because you've got a whole string of them, with the floppies. Oh, that was the thing I wanted to ask you. If they didn't want the trade paperback, but they wanted the single issues, maybe to fill in the gaps and stuff like that, can they get that here or on your website?
It's going to be made available on the website. And the thing is those are I think I only have for this particular story, I think I only have 16 sets left. And I don't think I'm going back to print on them. So once they're done, and I have them as like packages. So I'm like, once those are out. And they were all made as limited editions. I mean, I had 2 sets of covers. Like this is the Jade, like one of the Jade Gonzalez covers. And these were limited to 250 pieces. I'm not doing anymore. And then this one this is my alternative cover. This is Dani Harijawa. And with those limited to 500 pieces. And again, I'm almost out. So once those are gone. And then I'm not doing anymore.
And also, if I'm not misunderstanding, with the trade paperback, there's little gaps here and there that are going to be filled in within the trade paperback between the books, right? So there's going to be content you're not going to get anywhere else.
Right.
So definitely start back in the trades too, and get the floppies.
Exactly. Yeah, like I said, if you're a collector, they're limited edition. So it's not like if I reproduce them, they're going to be different. So maybe they'll be in color. Some lettering will be, trust me, it'll be different. It's not going to be the same. So yes, thank you.
All right.
And
well, go ahead, JD.
I may put them in as add-ons. It was one of the things I was considering. So we'll see. Maybe I'll do that. Maybe I won't. But there are some there's a level in there where you can get everything, where it's like you can get all the books and you'll get this trade plus everything else that I have in stock. So those are available for anyone who wants them.
Now, as for appearances and things like that, you recently had an appearance at a I forget which Comic-Con it was. Are you planning on another one this year?
I think I'll be at WinterCon. I think that's in December. But yeah, that's a little bit of ways. So, but yeah, I got a little bit of time before that one. The last one I did was Big Apple Con, and that was a lot of fun. We were there on a Saturday, and it was, we had a good time. We saw a lot of people. It was nice to get out in the meet space and meet and sell books.
Yeah, very cool.
Yeah.
And on that note, we have a little bit of a tiny promo that we did for you. That is the first of 2. We're going to have an expanded one, and we're going to play that now, and then we're going to get the heck out of here. But thank you guys for tuning in. This is JD Calderon, and we've got Russ Leach.
We'll be back in a couple hours.
Yeah, so we're going to take a little bit of a lunch break, and we'll be back with the double feature, Double Trouble.
No vlog today.
Perhaps not, or maybe. Yeah, we're still recovering from the jelly beans.
Nice.
And on that note, let me get the card up here. We'll play your little bump, and then we're out of here, you guys. We appreciate you. Come back at 3 p.m. Eastern, and here we go. That's right. Oswald Chronicles Volume 1 is on Kickstarter. Get over there and back it. Share it out with your friends. We appreciate everyone for tuning in. Hey, Nita.
Yo.
Final words.
Sandwich.
Back there, shit.
Ego
Raven, Air the First Unicorn. Oswald Chronicles Volume 1. Do it. And throw my dudes.
We're out of here, you guys. Thanks a lot. Hey there. This is Meredith Loughran with RAGIN, and I wanted to let you know that we encourage and promote independent creators and their projects through organic interaction, consultations, and more. Visit Nita and me at RAGINAVC.com for details and contact information.